The Art of Loving, by Erich Fromm. Introduction. Have you ever wondered why love, the one thing everyone on this planet seems to want, is the source of so much confusion and pain? We see it in movies, we hear it in songs, we dream about it. That perfect, all-consuming connection. Yet, for so many, the reality of love feels like a constant struggle. A relationship starts with an incredible spark, this feeling of intense excitement, and for a while, it's everything. But then, slowly, the magic fades. Misunderstandings creep in. The closeness gives way to a familiar distance. And what was once a source of joy becomes a source of anxiety, or worse, just a quiet, empty routine. There is hardly any endeavor we undertake with such high hopes, and yet, which fails so regularly. If this happened with any other skill, learning an instrument, playing a sport, building a business, we would do something about it. We'd study the reasons for our failure. We'd seek out a coach. We'd read books. We'd practice. But when it comes to love, we do something strange. We just try again, hoping that next time, we'll get lucky. We treat love like a matter of chance, something you fall into if you're fortunate. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? In 1956, a brilliant psychoanalyst named Erich Fromm published a small book that would become a quiet revolution. Fromm wasn't just a scholar, he was a man who had seen the worst of humanity. Having fled the horrors of Nazi Germany, he dedicated his life to understanding the deep psychological forces that drive us, our fears, our hopes, and our profound need for connection. He looked at the modern world, with all its progress and wealth, and saw a deep spiritual sickness, a world of lonely people, desperately searching for something they didn't even know how to define. And out of that concern came The Art of Loving. This book isn't a collection of dating tips or techniques for seduction. It's something far more profound. Fromm starts with a simple, earth-shattering premise: love is not a feeling. It is an art. And like any art, whether it's painting, music, or medicine, it requires knowledge and it requires effort. It's not about finding the right person, it's about becoming the right person. Today, we are going to walk through the powerful lessons of this timeless masterpiece. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you will see love in a completely new light. You will understand that love isn't something you passively wait for, but something you can actively build, practice, and master. You will learn the difference between falling in love and the far more profound act of standing in love. This isn't just about romantic relationships. This is about learning how to connect with the world, with others, and most importantly, with yourself, in a deeper and more meaningful way. So, let's begin this journey and learn the principles of the greatest art of all. Book summary. To understand the art of loving, we first have to understand the artist. And the artist, in this case, is us. Every single human being. Erich Fromm asks us to consider a fundamental problem that every person who has ever lived has faced, from our earliest ancestors in caves to us today, scrolling through our phones. It is the problem of human existence itself. We are born into this world without our consent, and we leave it against our will. We are aware of ourselves as separate individuals, conscious of our short time here, our aloneness, and our helplessness before the forces of nature and society. This awareness of our separateness, Fromm says, is the source of all anxiety. It is an unbearable prison. If we couldn't find a way to break out of this prison and connect with others, with the world outside ourselves, we would go insane. So, the deepest need of any human being is the need to overcome this separateness, to leave the prison of our aloneness. Throughout history, we have devised many ways to try and solve this problem. Some are temporary fixes. Think of orgiastic states, losing oneself in a trance, a wild party, or through drugs and alcohol. For a fleeting moment, the feeling of separation disappears, the anxiety melts away, and we feel fused with the world. But these states are always transitory. The anxiety always returns, sometimes even stronger than before. A much more common solution, especially in our modern world, is what Fromm calls union by conformity. We try to overcome our aloneness by blending in, by becoming exactly like everyone else. If I dress like everyone else, think like everyone else, and like the same things as everyone else, then I can feel like I belong to the herd. I am saved from the frightening experience of being different, of being alone. In democratic societies, this isn't forced on us by a dictator. It's encouraged through suggestion and propaganda. We live under the illusion that we are following our own tastes, but we are often just conforming to the pattern. This creates a pseudo-unity, a sense of connection that isn't real because our true, individual selves are hidden away. A third way we seek union is through creative work. When an artist paints, or a carpenter builds a table, they unite themselves with their material. They pour their energy into the world and become one with their creation. This is a beautiful and fulfilling path to union, but it's not interpersonal. It doesn't solve the problem of our separateness from other people. Orgiastic fusion is temporary. Conformity is only a pseudo-unity. Creative work is not interpersonal. Fromm tells us that these are all just partial answers. The full and final answer to the problem of human existence lies in the achievement of interpersonal union, of fusion with another person, in love. This desire for fusion with another is the most powerful force in human beings. It is the passion that keeps our species going. Without it, humanity could not exist for a single day. But here, Fromm makes a critical distinction. Not all forms of interpersonal union are the same. There are immature forms of love, which he calls symbiotic union, and there is mature love. Symbiotic union is like the relationship between a pregnant mother and the fetus. They are two, yet they are one. They need each other to survive. In the psychological version of this, two people become dependent on each other to feel whole, but they do so without integrity. The passive form of this is submission, or masochism. The person escapes their feeling of aloneness by making themselves a part of someone else. They let another person direct them, guide them, become their whole world. They are never alone, but they have no independence, no freedom. The active form is domination, or sadism. This person tries to escape their loneliness by making another person a part of them. They inflate themselves by incorporating someone who worships them. The sadist is just as dependent on the submissive person as the submissive person is on them. Neither can live without the other. This is fusion without integrity. It is not love. So, what is mature love? Fromm defines it beautifully. Mature love is union under the condition of preserving one's integrity, one's individuality. Think about that for a moment. Love is not about losing yourself in another person. It's not about merging into a single entity. In love, a paradox occurs. Two beings become one, and yet remain two. Love is a power that breaks down the walls that separate us from others, but it permits us to be ourselves, to retain our integrity. This brings us to one of the most important ideas in the entire book. If love is an art, what is the action? What is the practice? Fromm says that love is an activity. But not in the way we usually use that word. We think of activity as doing something to achieve an external goal, doing business, building a house, running a race. But Fromm uses the word in a different sense. An activity is the use of one's inherent powers. A person sitting quietly and meditating, experiencing their connection to the world, is engaged in the highest form of activity, an activity of the soul. Love, in this sense, is an action. It is a standing in, not a falling for. It is a conscious practice. And what is the main characteristic of this practice? Fromm states it simply: love is primarily giving, not receiving. Now, this is where many of us get tripped up. We often misunderstand what giving means. We think of it as giving up something, as a sacrifice, a loss. For the person who hasn't matured, giving feels like an impoverishment. But for the productive, mature person, giving is the highest expression of potency. In the very act of giving, you experience your own strength, your wealth, your power. It doesn't deplete you, it fills you with joy. Giving is more joyous than receiving, not because it is a deprivation, but because in the act of giving lies the expression of your aliveness. And what is it that we give? We don't just give our material possessions. The most important sphere of giving is in the human realm. You give of yourself, of what is most precious within you. You give of your life. This doesn't mean you sacrifice your life for another, but that you give them what is alive inside you. You give of your joy, your interest, your understanding, your knowledge, your humor, your sadness. In giving of your life, you enrich the other person. You don't give in order to receive. Giving is its own joy. But in truly giving, you cannot help but bring something to life in the other person, and that which you bring to life reflects back to you. Love is a power that produces love. If love is an active practice of giving, what are the basic elements that all forms of love must have? Fromm identifies 4 essential components: care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. Let's look at each one. First, care. This is the most obvious. If a mother told you she loved her baby, but you saw that she neglected to feed it or keep it warm, you wouldn't believe her. Love is the active concern for the life and the growth of that which we love. Where this active concern is lacking, there is no love. Fromm uses the biblical story of Jonah to illustrate this. God tells Jonah that the essence of love is to labor for something and to make something grow. You love that for which you labor, and you labor for that which you love. Second is responsibility. Today, we often think of this as a duty, something imposed on us. But in its true sense, responsibility is a voluntary act. It means to be able and ready to respond to the needs, expressed or unexpressed, of another human being. The loving person responds. The life of their brother is not just their brother's business, it is their own. Third, there is respect. This is not fear or awe. The word comes from the Latin respicere, to look at. It means the ability to see a person as they are, to be aware of their unique individuality. Respect means you want the other person to grow and unfold for their own sake, in their own way, not for the purpose of serving you. You can only respect someone if you have achieved independence yourself. As an old French song says, love is the child of freedom, never of domination. And finally, the fourth element is knowledge. You cannot respect a person without knowing them. Care and responsibility would be blind if they were not guided by knowledge. This isn't just surface-level knowledge. It's the kind of knowledge that penetrates to the core. It is only possible when you can get past your own concerns and see the other person in their own terms. For example, you might see that someone is angry. But deeper knowledge might show you that their anger is just a manifestation of something deeper, that they are anxious, or lonely, or feeling guilty. You see the suffering person, not the angry one. This drive to know another person is fundamental. But Fromm warns us there are 2 paths to knowing another's secret. One is the path of sadism, of complete power over another person, to make them suffer and force them to reveal their secret. But this path only destroys, it never reveals. The other path to knowing is love. Love is active penetration of the other person, where the desire to know is satisfied by union. In the act of loving, of giving yourself, of penetrating the other person, you find yourself, you discover them, you discover humanity. It is the only way of full knowledge. Care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. These four are not separate. They are a syndrome of attitudes that are found in the mature, productive person. You cannot have one without the others. Now that we have this framework, Fromm shows us how this single, loving orientation can be directed toward different objects. It's not that there are different kinds of love, but rather that the one faculty of love expresses itself in different ways. The foundation for all of them is brotherly love. This is the love for all human beings. It is characterized by its very lack of exclusiveness. It's the love the Bible speaks of when it says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." Brotherly love is based on the experience that, beneath all our surface differences in talent or intelligence, we are all one. At the human core, we are identical. When we perceive another person from this center, we see our brother, our sister. This is love between equals. Then there is motherly love. This, by its nature, is love for the helpless. It's an unconditional affirmation of a child's life and needs. Fromm says motherly love has two aspects, which he beautifully illustrates with a metaphor. Giving milk is the first aspect, the care and responsibility necessary to preserve a child's life and help them grow. But only some mothers are able to give honey as well. Honey symbolizes the sweetness of life, the feeling that it is good to be alive. A mother can only give honey if she is not just a good mother, but a happy person. But the real achievement of motherly love is not in her love for the infant. The true test comes later. The very essence of motherly love is to care for the child's growth, and that means wanting the child's separation from herself. In erotic love, two people become one. In motherly love, two people who are one become separate. The mother must not only tolerate this separation, she must wish for it and support it. This requires true unselfishness, the ability to give everything and want nothing in return but the happiness of the loved one. In contrast to these is erotic love. This is the craving for complete fusion with one other person. By its nature, it is exclusive. It is not universal. But Fromm warns that this is perhaps the most deceptive form of love. It is so often confused with the explosive experience of falling in love, that initial feeling of sudden intimacy when the walls between two strangers collapse is exhilarating. But that experience is, by its nature, short-lived. As the two people get to know each other, the intimacy loses its miraculous character. The initial excitement fades. Many people mistake this intensity of infatuation for proof of the intensity of their love, when it may only prove the degree of their prior loneliness. Real erotic love is not just a feeling. It has one critical premise, that you love from the essence of your being, and experience the other person in the essence of theirs. Erotic love is exclusive only in the sense that you can fuse fully and intensely with one person. But if it is true love, you don't just love that one person. In loving them, you love all of mankind, you love the world, you love all that is alive. Crucially, Fromm argues that erotic love is not just a strong feeling, it is a decision, it is a judgment, it is a promise. A feeling comes and it may go. How can you promise to love someone forever if love is only a feeling? You can't. The promise of love is rooted in an act of will, a commitment of your life to that of another. This leads us to a fourth object of love, one that has caused a lot of confusion: self-love. For centuries, we have been taught that to love others is a virtue, but to love oneself is sinful. We equate self-love with selfishness. Fromm says this is a grave error. First, there's a logical fallacy. The biblical idea "love thy neighbor as thyself" implies that respect for your own integrity and uniqueness is not separate from respect for others. Love for your own self is inseparably connected with the love for any other being. Psychologically, Fromm argues that love is an attitude, a character orientation. If you are a loving person, you love everyone, and that includes yourself. Love, in principle, is indivisible. If you can love others, you can love yourself. If you can only love others, you cannot love at all. So what about selfishness? The selfish person is not someone who loves themselves too much, but too little. In fact, Fromm says, the selfish person hates themselves. They lack fondness and care for their real self. This leaves them feeling empty and frustrated, anxiously trying to snatch satisfactions from life that they block themselves from attaining. Selfishness and self-love are not just different, they are opposites. A mother with genuine self-love gives her child the greatest gift, the experience of what love, joy, and happiness are. Finally, Fromm explores the love of God. Psychologically, he says, the love of God is not different from the love of man. It springs from the same need to overcome separateness and to achieve union. The character of one's love for God depends on the character of the person. He traces the historical development of religion, from early matriarchal religions where the highest being was an all-enveloping, unconditional mother goddess, to patriarchal religions where God became a father figure, demanding, setting laws, and giving love based on obedience. But just as an individual matures, our concept of God can mature too. We can move from an infantile idea of God as a magical helping parent to a mature one. In a mature religion, God ceases to be an external power, a person outside of us. God becomes a symbol of the principles of love, truth, and justice that we have incorporated within ourselves. To love God, then, means to long for the full capacity to love, to realize that which God stands for in oneself. This brings us to the great challenge. If love is a capacity of a mature, productive character, then our ability to love depends on the culture we live in. So, Fromm asks the hard question, is the social structure of modern Western civilization conducive to the development of love? His answer is a resounding no. He argues that modern capitalist society is based on the market. We have a commodity market and we have a labor market. Human energy and skill have become commodities to be bought and sold. In this system, amassed things, that which is dead, are valued more than human powers, that which is alive. This has led to a character structure that Fromm calls the marketing orientation. We experience ourselves as a commodity. Our value is not based on our intrinsic human qualities, but on our success in a competitive market. We create a personality package that we hope will be a fair bargain in exchange for someone else's. The outcome is modern man is alienated from himself, from his fellow men, and from nature. He has been transformed into a commodity. Human relations become those of alienated automatons. Everyone tries to be close to the herd, yet everyone remains utterly alone, filled with a deep sense of insecurity and anxiety. Automatons cannot love. They can only exchange their personality packages and hope for a fair deal. In this world, love disintegrates into forms of pseudo-love. One is the ideal of the team marriage. Two people who remain strangers their whole lives form a well-oiled partnership, a refuge from an unbearable sense of aloneness. This egoism ado is mistaken for love and intimacy. Another form of disintegration is the belief that love is the result of sexual satisfaction. This is the idea that if two people learn the right sexual techniques, they will love each other. Fromm says the exact opposite is true. Sexual happiness is the result of love, not the cause of it. The cause of most sexual problems is not a lack of technique, but the inhibitions, the fear, and the hatred that make it impossible for a person to love. So, if our society works against the development of love, what can we do? How do we practice this art in a world that seems to discourage it at every turn? This is where Fromm shifts from theory to practice. He offers no simple prescriptions or how-to guides. The practice of an art can only be learned by practicing. But he does outline the general requirements, the approaches to the art. First, the practice of any art requires discipline. Not the rigid, authoritarian discipline of our grandfathers, but a discipline that becomes an expression of your own will. Getting up at a regular hour, devoting time to meditation or reading, not overindulging in escapist activities. This discipline should feel pleasant, something you would miss if you stopped. Second is concentration. Our culture leads to a diffused, unconcentrated way of life. We do many things at once. We read, listen to the radio, talk, eat, drink. To learn concentration, we must first learn to be alone with ourselves. This is a condition for the ability to love. If you are attached to someone because you cannot stand on your own feet, that is not a relationship of love. Paradoxically, the ability to be alone is the condition for the ability to love. Third is patience. In our industrial system, everything is about quickness. We think we lose time if we don't do things quickly, yet we don't know what to do with the time we gain, except to kill it. If you are after quick results, you will never learn an art. Finally, and most importantly, the practice of love requires one supreme condition: overcoming one's narcissism. Narcissism is the orientation where you experience as real only that which exists within yourself. The outside world is only seen in terms of how it is useful or dangerous to you. The opposite pole of narcissism is objectivity. It is the faculty to see people and things as they are, separate from your own desires and fears. The faculty to think objectively is reason. The emotional attitude behind reason is humility. To be objective is only possible if you have emerged from the childish dreams of omniscience and omnipotence. Love, therefore, requires the development of humility, objectivity, and reason. This process of emergence, of waking up from narcissism, requires one more quality: faith. Fromm is not talking about irrational faith, which is belief based on submission to authority. He means rational faith, a conviction rooted in your own experience of thought or feeling. It is the faith a scientist has in a vision before it can be proven. It is the faith you have in the core of another person's personality. Most of all, in relation to love, what matters is faith in your own love, in its ability to produce love in others, and in its reliability. To love means to commit yourself without guarantee, to give yourself completely in the hope that your love will produce love in the loved person. Love is an act of faith, and whoever is of little faith is also of little love. Discipline, concentration, patience, humility, objectivity, reason, faith, and courage. These are not just qualities for loving one person. They are qualities for living. Fromm's final point is that you cannot separate your life in such a way that you are productive in love but unproductive in all other spheres. The capacity to love demands a state of intensity, of awakeness, of enhanced vitality, which can only be the result of a productive orientation in all spheres of life. To be a loving person means to be a disciplined, concentrated, patient, humble, and courageous person. It is a practice that encompasses every moment of your life. It is the ultimate challenge and the most rewarding journey a human being can undertake. Commentary. As we come to the end of our exploration of the art of loving, it's hard not to be struck by how a book written over half a century ago can feel so profoundly, almost painfully, relevant to our world today. Erich Fromm was writing in 1956, but he could have been writing about our lives right now. His diagnosis of the marketing orientation, where we treat ourselves and others like commodities, sounds like a perfect description of the age of social media, where we carefully curate a personal brand and swipe through dating profiles like a catalog. His description of our alienation and deep-seated loneliness, masked by the constant consumption of entertainment and new things, feels more true than ever in a world where we are more connected digitally, yet often more isolated personally, than at any point in history. The most powerful and, I think, the most hopeful lesson from this book is its central idea, that love is a skill to be learned, not a mystery to be solved. This is a revolutionary concept. It takes love out of the realm of luck and magic and places it firmly in our own hands. It tells us that we don't have to be passive victims of our feelings, waiting for a lightning bolt of emotion to strike. We can be active creators of love in our own lives. This is incredibly empowering, especially when you're young and just beginning to navigate the complexities of relationships. It means that every interaction, every day, is an opportunity to practice. When you choose to listen with full concentration instead of thinking about what you're going to say next, you are practicing the art of loving. When you choose to respond to someone's need, not out of duty but out of a voluntary sense of connection, you are practicing. When you challenge your own biased perspective of a person and try to see them objectively, with humility, you are practicing. This book isn't just an analysis, it's a call to action. A call to live more deeply, more consciously, and more courageously. So how can we start, right now, to apply these profound ideas in our own lives? Here are a few simple, practical actions you can take today. First, practice concentration by learning to be alone with yourself. Try this. For just 10 minutes a day, sit quietly in a room by yourself. No phone, no music, no books. Just sit. Notice your breath. At first, you might feel restless, even anxious. You'll find your mind racing with 1,000 distractions. That's normal. The goal isn't to have an empty mind, but simply to stay with yourself, to be present. This simple act builds the foundation for being truly present with another person, which is the heart of love. Second, practice the act of giving. This doesn't have to be grand gestures. Start small. The next time you're in a conversation with a friend or family member, make the conscious choice to give them your full attention. Listen not just to their words, but to the feelings behind them. Don't plan your response while they're talking, just listen. Another way is to give of your help or your time without expecting anything in return. This small shift from a mindset of receiving to one of giving is a powerful step in developing a loving character. Third, practice objectivity by developing humility. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement or feeling hurt by someone's actions, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, what is my narcissistically distorted picture of this situation? Am I seeing this person as they truly are, or am I seeing them through the filter of my own needs, fears, and expectations? Trying to separate your picture of a person from their reality is a difficult but crucial exercise in overcoming the self-centeredness that stands in the way of love. Learning the art of loving is not a short-term project. It is the work of a lifetime. It's about a fundamental shift in our orientation to the world, from wanting to get, to wanting to give, from being a spectator of life, to being an active participant. It teaches us that the greatest fulfillment doesn't come from finding the perfect person, but from becoming a person who is capable of love. It is a journey that promises not ease, but aliveness, not a life without conflict, but one with deep, meaningful connection. And that, I believe, is the greatest adventure we can ever embark upon. That was A Journey Through the Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. We've touched on some of the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you travel the territory yourself. The real magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This podcast is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord with you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, others, and the beautiful, complex art of your own life. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It lets me know that these explorations matter, and it ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.